Open the coop door. Is the one walking in you, your neighbor, or the vet? You don't even need your chicken to look at you to figure that out. Because it recognizes you by the sound of your footsteps. It remembers you by your face. And if you change the sweater you wore yesterday, it notices and approaches you with just a little more suspicion. You might find that fascinating. But let me share something that will surprise you even more. A chicken can memorize over 100 individuals on average. And yet, while we struggle to remember the name of the person we met yesterday or what we had for lunch, how does a chicken manage to hold so much information in its memory? Today, we'll explore both the psychological dimension of this phenomenon and the behavioral and cognitive codes behind it. As humans, we tend to flatter ourselves about our mental superiority. We remember names, analyze the past, solve problems. But when we compare ourselves to a chicken's memory within its social life, things don't look so great. While chickens encode their daily experiences in rich and detailed ways, we often fall short. So how do chickens manage this, and by what method? Let's explore these situations now. Just animals. They are beings with extremely complex social structures. A coop is essentially a small-scale society. And as in every society, knowledge is power. Knowing who brings food, who poses a threat, and who is sick means survival. Scientific research shows that chickens can recognize an average of over 100 different individuals. This isn't just a matter of this chicken, that chicken. They distinguish each individual by facial features, feather patterns, size, and even gait. And they don't do this only for their own species, they recognize humans too. Yes, they recognize you. In a study conducted at the University of Bristol, chickens were shown photographs of different human faces. The result? Chickens demonstrated a remarkable success rate in distinguishing previously seen faces from new ones. And just like in humans, chickens exhibit an own species advantage, they recognize members of their own species faster and more accurately. But this doesn't mean they can't recognize human faces. It just takes a little more training to recognize humans. Does that sound familiar? Humans also have difficulty distinguishing faces of other racial groups, a phenomenon in psychology known as the cross-race effect. It turns out we fall into the same cognitive trap as chickens. But here's the interesting part, chickens don't rely solely on visual memory. They integrate multiple senses. To recognize an individual, they don't just use their eyes, they also engage their nose, ears, and even instinctive timing. Now let's go a little deeper. How do chickens manage to retain so many faces? In the human brain, there is a specialized region called the fusiform face area. An equivalent of this region also exists in the chicken brain, a capability acquired over millions of years of evolution. But a chicken's facial recognition isn't just an aesthetic skill. It's a survival strategy. Within a coop, knowing who ranks higher in the hierarchy, understanding who is safe to eat beside, and noticing who is sick all require facial recognition. Because a sick or stressed chicken's behavior and psychological state becomes externally visible and other chickens notice. As for us humans, we recognize faces too, and quite well. But when it comes to names, things fall apart. You might remember the faces of 10 people you met at a meeting, but the names? That's where we stumble. Because the human brain considers faces more valuable than names. In ancient times, recognizing someone's face meant understanding whether they were friend or foe. Names were a luxury invented much later. Chickens, of course, don't have names. But they have a system that substitutes for names, vocal and physical profiles. These two elements form the key details a chicken uses to encode and memorize another being. Each chicken has a unique vocal tone, beak color, comb shape, and feather pattern. Chickens combine these features and draw a conclusion about another individual: this is my rival or this is my friend. Now we come to the most impressive part. Chickens don't just remember what they see, they also remember what they hear. And this is where their sound discrimination ability comes into play. Did you know a chicken can distinguish over 30 different sounds? Truly remarkable. 30 distinct sounds form an effective warning system for recognizing potential threats: birds of prey, approach and retreat calls, distress clucking. But what's even more interesting is that each chicken's voice is slightly different, just like human voices. And chickens recognize their companions' voices. Research even shows that chicks begin to recognize their mother's voice before hatching. In other words, memory begins at the very start of life, even before life begins. What about us? How good is our sound recognition as humans? We can recognize someone on the phone, yes. But can we distinguish 10 different voices in a meeting room and say that voice belongs to that person? For most of us, that's a challenge. We are visual creatures, sound takes a back seat. We tend to think of sight as the superior mode of perception. But for chickens, sound is the powerful sense that works even in darkness, in fog, or from a great distance. Another interesting finding: chickens can also perceive emotional states through vocal tone. A stressed chicken's voice becomes higher pitched, faster, and more erratic. A calm chicken's voice is lower and more rhythmic. And other chickens understand this. In other words, a chicken can tell my friend isn't doing well today just by listening. Humans have something similar too. On a phone call, we can sense from someone's voice that their mood is low. But humans do this consciously. Chickens in a coop do it instinctively and collectively. A chicken under stress can put the entire coop on alert simply through its vocalizations. Sound instantaneously affects the psychology of the whole flock. In an office, do people have the same reaction? Of course not. We don't have a built-in stress alarm system. We can only send a text message. Let's now make a scientific comparison. For the upper limit of human social memory, there is the famous Dunbar's number, proposed by anthropologist Robin Dunbar. According to this, a person can maintain approximately 150 meaningful social relationships at once, meaning they can truly know 150 people, remember who they are, how they relate to others, and recall past interactions. Chickens have a similar limit. But their social world is a coop, and a coop typically consists of 20 to 100 individuals. So chickens have effectively memorized their entire social universe. Have you memorized all 100 people in your office? Or all 50 neighbors in your apartment building? That's where the difference lies. Chickens use their social memory at full capacity. Because for chickens, forgetting is not an option. If you forget, you walk up to the chicken that pecked you and hurt you. If you forget, you lose track of who feeds you, who takes your eggs, or who poses a danger. Without that knowledge, you lose your entire framework for understanding who is a threat and who is a friend. For chickens, survival depends on not forgetting. We humans, on the other hand, use forgetting as a coping mechanism. We try to erase bad memories. We forget names and brush it off with "it doesn't matter." Because for us, social memory is a matter of comfort, not survival. For chickens, it is a matter of life and death. Another key difference: chickens remember past interactions in detail. Instead of simply thinking "this chicken attacked me yesterday," they maintain a kind of record. "This chicken pushed me aside at the water bowl 3 days ago, cut in front of me at feeding time 2 days ago, and pecked me yesterday." This is remarkably similar to how humans calculate trust. We too keep track of every small good or bad thing someone does to us, but consciously. Chickens do it instinctively. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of this section: chickens don't just store their own experiences. They also observe and learn from the experiences of others. This involves third-party observation and inference, what psychologists call social learning. And chickens are excellent at it. It's time to stop thinking of a chicken as merely a source of eggs and meat. Do you still think of them that way? So what do we do with all this information? The lesson from chickens is this: social memory is not a luxury, it is a skill. And there are 3 things we can do to develop this skill. First, use multiple cues. Chickens don't just look at faces, they also pay attention to voice, scent, and behavior. We too should not rely solely on a name when trying to know someone. We should note: what did this person's voice sound like? How do they dress? How do they walk? What topics do they talk about? When the brain integrates information from multiple senses, it remembers far more powerfully. Second, create context. Chickens associate individuals with specific places, times, and sequences of events. The same applies to us. We remember someone's name and face more easily when we link them to a location, a time, and a shared context. Third, map the social network. Chickens know who is with whom. We too can mentally visualize the web of relationships in our social circle. We encode people according to their family ties, closeness, distance, and relationships, and this mental mapping helps us remember individuals and their circumstances. This strengthens social bonds. Finally, my recommendation to you: chickens know 100 individuals because those individuals matter to them. If we start genuinely caring about the people around us, even those we might consider insignificant, we can remember them far more deeply and sincerely. The most common cause of forgetting is simply not caring. Please value the people around you. See you in the next video. Take care. And remember, sometimes the deepest social insights are hidden in the simplest observations.